and welcome to Take 12 with Kate. Today we're going to focus on stretching and strengthening areas that are important for long distance running or walking. So we're going to start with a little bit of ankle mobility here. You're going to be on one foot, it doesn't matter which one because we're going to do them both, and you're just going to draw a big huge circle with the toes of the other foot. 4 or 5 times in one direction, and then of course you're going to switch. If you're having a little bit of difficulty balancing today, you can always have your fingertips on a wall, countertop, chair, whatever you need. Last 1 or 2 here, and then we're going to switch and do the opposite side. So ankle mobility is pretty important, especially if you're running or walking on uneven ground, but also just to be efficient in your running stride, to be able to push off properly with each step. If you haven't switched directions, go ahead and do so. All right, last 1 or 2 here, and then we're gonna get into a little bit of a calf stretch. So I'm gonna focus on the back leg here. You're gonna press that heel back and down, make sure it stays fixed on the floor. Toes are pointed forward or slightly turned in, and then you're gonna bend that back knee. So it's a pretty small movement, but you should feel a bit of a stretch deep in the calf of that back leg, and then release. So just make sure that heel stays down and doesn't peel up off the floor as you're bending. This is going to stretch the deeper of the 2 calf muscles. We'll stretch the other one later. Back and forth here, just kind of grooving. You might feel this down into your Achilles. All right, 1 more on this side, and then we'll switch and do the opposite leg. Pressing that heel back and down. And then bending that back knee just enough that you feel that stretch deep in that calf. Back of the lower leg, just grooving back and forth in there. Once again, using any tool you need for balance if that's necessary. All right, last 1 or 2. And then we're gonna get into a little bit of a glute activation drill. So glutes extend your hips. So with every step, that glute kicks in to extend the leg. So we're just gonna do a little drill to help practice that, get that ready to go. Tipping forward on one leg. Just make sure your standing leg is straight but not locked at the knee. Call it a soft knee. And then you're going to brush the toes back of the opposite leg till you're balancing, and then reset back to standing. So brush the toes back and release. You should be feeling this in your standing leg. Not overly intense, but just a little activation drill to get all those muscles that help you balance working, but also that glute to help kick that leg back. All right, last 1 or 2 on this side. And you want to make sure your torso is tipping forward in line with that back leg. So you're not actually bending. We're going to switch sides here. So standing on the opposite leg, but you're not actually bending forward from the hips. You're tipping forward, so you're hinging, feeling that stretch. You may feel a bit of a stretch up the back of the standing leg as well, and that's great. But really focusing on that standing leg glute, especially as you come back up to standing, squeezing that butt cheek as much as you can. All right, let's do 2 more on this side, brushing those toes back. And then release. So nothing too intense here, but once again, just a little activation drill. We're gonna go down into a half kneeling position. We'll start with the right knee on the ground and digging those right toes into the floor behind you. Left knee sitting directly over the left heel. And then squeeze this right hip forward, feeling a stretch right through the front of that hip crease. And then release. So it's a pretty small movement here. You're not arching your back or swinging your hips forward. It's just coming from your pelvis. Squeeze that glute, open up the hip, and release. You may feel this all the way down the front of the thigh. That's totally fine. But this should be a nice stretch in those muscles that flex your hips, and those are the ones that drive your leg forward every time you're taking a step. So if you imagine on a long distance run or walk, you'd be doing quite a bit of work with these muscles, so that's why we want to make sure that they're nice and stretched out for you. All right, before we move on to the other side, we're going to stretch a different muscle group. So you're going to go into a side position here with that straight leg, directly out to the side. Foot can be flat or on its side edge, so whatever position is most comfortable for you. Hands on the ground to support, and then keeping your back nice and flat, you're just going to push those hips back, increasing the stretch along the inner thigh, and then release. So you may feel a stretch from start position. That's fine. Stretch should increase as you push the hips gently back. Just a small movement here, moving in and out. And we're stretching those adductor muscles. Once again, those play a supporting role when you're running, and if you're doing long distances, that's a lot of steps. So just making sure that they stay healthy as well. All right, we got one more here, and then we got one last stretch in this little half kneeling series. We're gonna stretch out the calf. So second calf stretch, where we're gonna stretch the bigger of the calf muscles. So keeping that leg nice and straight behind you, pressing that heel down, keep the heel planted. You can cross the other leg behind just so it's out of the way, and then from here, you're just gonna lift and lower. So the more you're able to press that heel back and down, the more you should feel that little calf stretch. All right, last one or two here. Also getting the shoulders a little bit warm. We're gonna do another little drill here for the shoulders in a second. All right, and release. Okay, so we're going into half kneeling position, opposite foot forward. So for me, that'll be my right leg actually. And then digging those left toes into the ground behind you, squeeze that left hip, feeling a stretch at the front of the left thigh into that left hip crease, and then release. So once again, you're just gonna groove back and forth in here, pretty small movement coming from the pelvis to stretch out those left hip flexors. Last one or two, and then release it, bring that right leg out to the side. Once again, find a comfortable position in your foot, flat or side edge. Hands on the ground for support, back flat, hips back until you feel a stretch along the inner thigh of that right leg. So just back and forth in here. 4, 5, 6 reps at your own pace. This should feel nice and not uncomfortable. If it hurts to have your knee on the ground, you can always throw a cushion or blanket underneath as well. Rolled up towel or yoga mat. All right, from here, gently release. We're gonna get into that calf stretch on the right side. So pushing your hips right up off the ground, press that heel down, just cross the left foot behind the right ankle to get it out of the way, and then lift and lower, feeling that right calf stretching out here. All right, last one or two. Excellent. All right, you're gonna slowly make your way right to the floor. We're gonna go into a side plank position here. So we're gonna do a little drill to help strengthen the core, the glutes, the outside specifically of the glutes, or the gluteus medius, which helps support you when you're running and walking. So we're gonna, and also a little bit the shoulder. So line your forearm up on the ground with the elbow directly below the shoulder. Doesn't matter what side you do, we're gonna do them both. Knees are stacked, hips are stacked, up into that half side plank position. From here, extend the top leg and flex the toes back towards you. Lift and lower. Good. So nice and slow and controlled here. You should feel a little bit this shoulder working. You may feel down the side of your core, but you should specifically feel both glutes working on the outsides. That's your gluteus medius, and that's that supporting muscle that helps to keep you going when you're running those long distances. All right, last 2 or 3 on this side. And then slowly release, and then whip yourself around so you can do the opposite side. Same setup here, forearm on the ground, elbow directly below your shoulder, knees stacked, hips stacked, and then bringing the hips forward so everything's in nice straight lines. Top leg extended with the toes back, lifting and lowering in here. Nice and slow and controlled. Second side's tougher because that bottom glute is actually working to support, but it's already worked on the first side. Breathing through it, and just make sure that top leg stays behind or in line with the bottom leg. So you don't want it working in front. You definitely want it behind to get that right area. All right, last one, and release. Okay, we're gonna do a little stretch for those glute meads. Figure 4, so cross it over. Flex the toes back, sitting nice and tall here. The closer you bring your torso to your legs or your legs to your torso, the more you'll feel this stretch. We're looking for a stretch right in that muscle group that worked on that last exercise, perhaps at the outside of the leg. That's where the IT band is located. Also important in supporting you for those long distance walks or runs. So you may feel that stretch in there. Nice deep breaths here. All right, one more good deep breath on this side. And then we'll switch and do the opposite. So cross it over, toes back, chest tall. Find a spot that feels like a nice stretch for you. Once again, you want to feel this on the outside of the left hip and perhaps down the outside of the left leg. Should not hurt, should feel like a nice stretch. All right, one last deep breath on this side. And then we're going to stretch out the hamstrings to finish off today. So extend the right leg, flex the toes back towards you. And then without bending, you're going to hinge. So keep your back flat and hinge forward, actively pulling those toes back. You should feel a stretch up the back of that extended leg. Just breathing into that. Hamstrings also do a lot of work every time you're taking a step when you're running or walking. So you probably know this if you are a runner or long distance walker, that they get kind of tight sometimes. So this is kind of just a nice way to finish off our leg stretches for today. All right, last deep breath on this side, and then we'll switch it up. Same thing on the opposite side, finding a comfortable position, flex those toes back, and then tipping forward, keeping the back nice and flat, looking for that stretch up the back of that extended leg. If you can reach your toe, great. If not, it's fine. The important thing is that you actively pull the toes back to get that stretch as you hinge. All right, you can stay there or sit however's comfortable for you. We're just gonna finish off with a little shoulder release here. Pushing the arms forward, pulling the shoulder blades apart. Shoulders actually work a lot harder than you think as well when you're doing those long distance races or training runs or walks. So it's always a nice idea just to kind of stretch them out a little bit. Couple of nice deep breaths here. Thank you for joining us on today's edition of Take 12 with Kate. Hopefully that helps you to prepare for your running and walking adventures. Have a great day, everybody.